30 seconds in, even. What's going on? It says scheduled for May 11th, 2023 at 8:27 a.m. That's right now. Ah, there we go. We were a little slow out the gate getting started, but now the stream is working fine. So this morning I'd like to talk to you a little bit about very bad writing. I just watched the first couple of episodes of the cartoon Justice League on Netflix. Oh my God. Could there be any less creative pop to that thing? I'm just struck by how terrible American, not necessarily adult cartoons are. Like BoJack Horseman's obviously brilliant, Rick and Morty's great, whatever. But this Justice League thing on Netflix is so appallingly bad. Like, the dialogue is just so purely directive. You know, like, get him out of here now, or like, you fool, things like that. The storyline is so dumb and terrible. The origin story of the Justice League. They get invaded by some aliens, and they've got some kind of ray that disables the superheroes. And they have to break into their alien factory, and it's just a whole succession of going there, doing this kind of shit. Then Superman and who else? I guess Wonder Woman. They get captured ridiculously by this like glue stuff that has their hands and feet held down. And they can't get out until Batman comes and chops it with his bat throw thing. It's like, you're telling me Superman can't pull out of this goo, but Batman's little bat throw thing can break it apart? And then once Superman's out of this glue thing that's got his hands and feet glued down, then, and only then for some reason, does he use his laser vision to cut free the other people. Why didn't he just use his laser vision to cut himself free in the first place? And, you know, there's this galactic villain called the Imperium or something like that. And he tries to kill the Martian guy, the last Martian. But the last Martian knows their secret. Sunlight burns them. Are they vampires? Appallingly bad. I can't believe I watched even one episode of it, let alone two. You want to experience the very definition of phoning it in? Oh. Those characters have absolutely no depth at all. They couldn't be any more two-dimensional. The Green Lantern seems to be the only one who isn't an idiot, frankly. I mean, Wonder Woman just goes charging on in. Superman gets himself incapacitated and captured several times. Like, when they actually finally knock out all superheroes, why don't they just kill them all right then? Why do they have to glue them to the floor with their hands and feet, even though obviously the superhero is going to be able to get out of that? Just terrible, terrible writing. So this morning I got up and got started on a couple of things. I made some progress last night on the garage. I cleaned it up, moved things around, But I think what I've decided is that I want to email Mariposa Pines community, whatever, and tell them, yes, we want to be part of this community yard sale on June 8th. We want to sell stuff too. Because it occurred to me, like, we've got a lot of shit that I view as trash, but that some other person might purchase at a yard sale in the attic. And even if we don't successfully sell the attic stuff at the yard sale, planning to participate in the yard sale is impetus to take the things down from the attic, and then we can just throw away whatever doesn't sell, thereby freeing up our attic for our own storage purposes rather than just retaining all the original owner's stuff up there, It will also serve as a good motivator to clean out the shed down the hill. Which is awful. Is also full of stuff. Some of which is neat and maybe I want, but a lot of which I am not so enthusiastic about. When did I start wearing these kind of hats? When Winston's mom started buying them for me, I guess. And I've become quite fond of them. Because, you see, the power of a hat like this is that it conveys to anybody who sees you in the world that you can safely be boxed into one of their existing categories. Oh, this is a pleasant older gentleman. Now, if I don't have a hat on, and especially if I'm more shaggy than I am now, and I'm missing teeth, and then people are like, "Who is that scary hobo?" Put this hat on. "Good day, madam." All of a sudden, I'm a respectable gentleman. It's about this horrible cartoon on Netflix called Justice League. Yeah, well, Sky Guys from California. Sound system gonna bring me back upright. One thing that I can depend on. Sound system gonna bring me back upright. One thing that I can depend on. Used to be. You know what I'm singing right there, Dawson K? If you really know your California ska bands, you should know that one. Three Existence. Wait, hold on a second. I think maybe that 3 is intended to be an example of leet. And really, that's just supposed to say existence. Existence. It's better than the alternative. That's one thing we can all agree on. Existentiality. People get their panties in so much of a bunch over existentiality all the time. And the reason is so simple. It's because people don't understand that existentiality is not a discrete attribute of things. It's a distinction made by people. Correct, Dawson K. Very good. Very good. I'm very impressed with your knowledge. And then, of course, what happened? No Doubt came around and took everything that was good and authentic about California ska and made a shitty, mediocre version of it that was much more popular. Gwen Stefani. Could there be anybody who's less talented as a lead singer of a big band than Gwen Stefani? The thing is, they play live too. So it's not like she can just rely on auto-tune to get her by. She's so incredibly disposable and untalented, you know? Everything about Gwen Stefani makes me want to go, meh, overdose, to the point of double facepalm. You start with meh, but the overdose of meh is so massive. Ow. Motherfucker. Then you end up just hurling from mediocrity poisoning. Of course, No Doubt was my ESFJ ex-wife's favorite band because, of course, she had terrible taste in music. She liked a couple of good things, but it was just sort of like happenstance. It wasn't because she had any taste. Well, the thing about No Doubt is at least they have one or two good songs. Like, Only a Girl, I think. I'm Just a Girl. That one, that's a good song. I'm just a girl in the world. Won't let me drive late at night. That's their best song as their first hit. But regardless, they are so mediocrely disposable, it just makes me want to vomit from my butthole. But I will concede this. No Doubt is not as mediocrely uninspired and pointless as Justice League on Netflix. Oh my God. Maybe you should get somebody who tries a little bit to write the scripts for your things. You know, it's like, whoever did that, they could have just fucking filled in a formula recipe. Like, okay, threat emerges. Individual superheroes are thwarted in their efforts to address the threat, so they have to team up. And then, like, all the dialogue is just so fucking just banal, sensory, just not even exposition, just like supposedly sassy one-liners and shit that aren't sassy at all. Even the actors, you can tell they're not even hardly trying. How can you with such bad writing? Why would you bother trying with such bad writing? You can't act that garbage into anything that's not garbage. This pesky gray stuff on the wall, I want it to come off so badly. But it's kind of like I've already picked the low-hanging fruit off of it, and now It's hard to get at it. I got to go at it with a chisel and a hammer, and it's like, hi, I don't sign up for all this hard work. So I think what I'm going to do is squirt it with the hose. I think by trying to keep it wet it frequently, that will encourage the gray stuff to come off. That's my working theory anyway. I guess you'd call it more of a hypothesis if you wanted to be precise in your language. I don't think it qualifies as a theory. Not even really a hypothesis, more just like random speculation. Completely uninformed speculation. That's my favorite kind of reasoning to use. Okay. So now let's squirt the wall with the hose. This might have to be a daily thing for it to really be effective, you know? Wet this thing down every single day. Before you know it, it won't be gray. That's the old saying. If you wet it down every day, before you know it, it won't be gray. Check it out. Wet it down. Use the hose. Go to town. Every day, use the hose and wet the gray stuff with your nose. Use the hose. Every day. Another thing I was considering titling this stream was what was it? I forget now. It slipped from my mind. Like yesterday's dwindling sunshine at dusk. It's also not unlike a woman's period on day 5. Mostly just a memory now. And soon nothing, not even that is left behind. Just blends in with a lifetime of monthly vaginal blood sploosh splash parties. If you like the sploosh and you like the splash, won't you come to my sploosh splash party? I think that should be a euphemism for period that they use in commercials. They should just say you know, Bob is trying to get romantic with his wife, and she says, "Baby, I'm hosting a sploosh splash party." Of course, they both know what that means. The term having become entirely normalized thanks to my advocacy. Thanks to my powerful, powerful advocacy. I think it's not overreaching to say world-changing advocacy. On that come well the third color the menstrual cycles of vaginal blood splash party. You cowardly wall, trying to escape my reach. You're for getting wet. Get used to it. I grant you no reprieve from this wetness. What would you do if I wet down the wall? Would you say, Eric, that's not gonna work? What would I say if you told me that? I'd say, well, maybe, but don't be a jerk. 'Cause I'm washing down this wall with the hose, getting it wet, 'cause you know, baby knows that this gray stuff could go down to the blows. Do you wet every wall? No, I just wet this wall. Could it be any wall? No, I just told you it's just for this wall. Okay, good enough. If I wanted to get all the way to the end, I'd have to unwrap the final loops of the hose. I don't know if I'm quite feeling that much. I should have just unlooped all the loops of the hose to begin with, obviously, but I'm an idiot, so. Okay, now that I got that wall wet, hopefully the gray stuff's getting the message. You're welcome to fall off anytime. Now this is a good hose, right? It's a Craftsman hose. That's the sort of shit that I've come to just value immensely. Like, you know, I had this machete that I brought up from LA that I got at Harbor Freight. It is such a shitty machete. It's like, why even bother getting it at all? It's so cheaply made. It's so not robust. It gets dull so fast. And then when it's not busy getting dull, it's busy just not doing a good job of cutting anything. When it's not busy getting dull, I should have said. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I go online, I try to buy a decent machete today. I look at a bunch of different machetes. I select one, even though it's, in my mind, very expensive at $100. But it's not as much as some of them. Some of them you get like $300, $400 for a machete. Well, anyway, I found what I thought was a good one for $100. And then their website like froze as I was placing the order, and long story short, I ended up ordering it twice. So I call them like 5 seconds after I ordered it twice and realized I had two separate order numbers and said I want to cancel one of them. And they said, I'm sorry, we can't do that. You have to return it. Once it gets to your house, you have to return it. I'm like, fine. But, you know, I'm tempted, frankly, since I'm getting two of these, and they should both be pretty good. I mean, the same thing. Maybe I just give one to Cameron. Because returning shit is such a hassle. But I was pretty annoyed by that. Well, they should let you cancel one. You call 5 minutes after you've ordered two of the identical thing in two separate orders, not like I added two to my cart, right? It's very obvious that there was some kind of fuck up and a duplicate order was put there. And yet, they're like, I'm sorry, we just can't do that. I have no means of doing that. You gotta be fucking kidding me, right? But I said, okay, whatever, we'll just return it when it gets here. It just occurred to me now, maybe I'll give it to Cameron. He's the kind of guy who would appreciate a good machete. Hero Lamb, let me tell you how to deal with that. Hero Lamb says, I was also in a weird situation recently in the store. I was checking out. A cute chick was the cashier, and she asked me if I wanted to donate to this charity. I felt pressure to do so. The correct answer to that is, well, do they want to donate to me? That's what. Is there an option where they donate to me? No? Well, that hardly seems fair. Or, would you like to donate to this charity? Definitely not. Would you like to give me $100 for no reason? Well, you don't need to be busting her chops. I said that one time at a PetSmart or whatever. Said, would you like to donate $1 to St. Jude's? Is there an option where they donate $1 to me? And the cashier laughed. He thought it was funny. It's like when I went to buy that thing at JCPenney's with Rachel. I had to buy some piece of clothing for the funeral. And after I had paid with the card, on the screen it says, would you like to donate to, and it had a list of charities. But on the list of charities, there was just one charity on the list. And it was Hispanic Federation. Do I want to donate to a Hispanic Federation? I have no idea what that is. I can't even conceive of a structure where Hispanics are organized federally. Like, to call themselves a federation. What? Is it a federation because each subset of Hispanics is an independent state where the federation provides the central governing authority over all the states? I don't get it. Hispanic Federation. Do I want to donate to it? I'm buying something from JCPenney. Why would I want to donate something to Hispanic Federation? It wasn't even called the Hispanic Federation. It was just Hispanic Federation. What I should do every time I go to a store where they have that is I should solicit them. I should say, no, thank you. But it brings up a good point since we're doing this. Would you guys like to donate to me? Your store? Because I could really use a donation. If everybody did that, they'd stop that bullshit. I mean, talk about punting on your moral agency. I don't feel like actually being a good person, so I just donate $1 to Hispanic Federation. It's so ridiculous. Anybody who wants to give money to charity, let me give you a suggestion. Instead of giving money to charity, Send the money to me, and I will personally thank you on one of these live streams. Won't that be a lot more gratifying than giving money to charity? Charity in general is just a way to con the morally confused. All charitable organizations, their primary job is to sustain the jobs of the people who work at the charitable organization. So while when you give to a charitable organization, you are doing a good thing, that good thing is paying the salaries of the people who work for the charitable organization. It's not whatever helping thing you think you're doing. The only kind of real charity that matters is giving people, individual people that you know, like give some individual person you know money. That's meaningful. But remember that it always comes with a cost too. It's like if you give somebody money, it affects the dynamic between the two of you, potentially. So it's better, even if you're going to give somebody money, to say, here's an indefinite loan. So anyway, I think charity is one of the devil's favorite tools. It's just basically subverting the responsibility of individuals to have real moral engagement, you know? And obviously, also, charity is inherently paternalistic. So the people who least should feel superior, namely those dumb enough to give to charity, use their charitable donations instead of proving as proof of their dumbness as somehow proof of their goodness. And that's just terrible. I mean, look at that Brett Favre thing. What happened with that? Where Brett Favre wanted to be charitable to his alma mater because his daughter went to go play volleyball there. And so he donated $500,000 to building this new facility, worked with the university to raise additional funds from other donors, but in the process, at some point, signed an agreement that said, if we can't raise all the monies necessary to do this, then I, Brett Favre, will cover the difference. It turned out they couldn't, and that difference ended up being something like $1.5 million. Brett Favre continually, just forever, dragged his feet about fulfilling his obligation there, instead prioritizing attempting to find alternate ways to get that funding raised. And he lobbied people in the state government a lot. And so the people in the state government said, well, we have some charitable monies over here. Maybe we could reallocate some of them to this state university volleyball facility. After all, in both cases, the funds are allocated charitably. Well, of course, it turned out to be the Mississippi State Fund for, it's basically Mississippi State Welfare. And so now everybody's like, Brett Favre's the devil because he took welfare money and spent it on volleyball shit. But the reality is, the state is the devil for thinking it's a good idea to give money to poor people in the first place based on the fact that they're poor. It is a good idea for poor people to receive money, provided the money that's given out by the government the same amount is given to every person regardless of their means. Anytime you have means testing, you simply engender fraud, abuse, and the decoupling of receiving benefits from actual reality. That's history has taught us this again and again and again and again and again. So while I favor a UBI, universal basic income, I favor it according to the conditions I previously articulated there, that each individual, regardless of wealth, should receive exactly the same amount of money. You could make it kick in at a certain age. I think that would be fine. Like if it's too expensive, and of course, to do this UBI, you need either to have a good funding plan, like I have in my UBI plan, which is crypto US dollar, which is isolated legally from Congress, so they can't access those funds, and runs directly through the Treasury. I've got it all articulated out. But anyway, that's a super good plan for a UBI. But if you aren't going to do that, the only way you can possibly have a UBI is have it replace all existing social programs. That would be a double win, because UBI monies directly going to individuals without the means testing cancer is genuinely beneficial for the economy. And additionally, all the social programs with in-kind benefits that exist currently, if we were to eliminate those and replace it with a UBI, then you'd have a double win, because those things that are currently in existence are parasites on the economy, because they're not structured according to the specifics I just said, namely no strings attached cash payments to each individual of an equal amount of money, regardless of their neediness. Anyway, it's like most of America's problems are easily enough fixed. All it requires is elect Eric to be president, and I'll start articulating the significant problems and meaningfully addressing them with plans. Like I've got history's most brilliant plan for a UBI, and I also have the only even conceivably effective plan to solve homelessness in America as a problem anyway. I mean, you're not going to provide housing for absolutely everybody in the country, but you can eliminate the scourge of homelessness that is destroying every major city on the West Coast by following Eric's plan. And so where is the hill to be climbed here in terms of actually doing what Trump hilariously promised to do, making America great again? What is the hill we have to summit to make America great again? It's most simply expressed as elect Eric president. Because I am not an ideologue. I'm not a propagandist. I'm not a partisan, nor am I politically ambitious for personal career reasons. I just happen to be the single most qualified American citizen to become president, and the single most qualified American citizen to become president in the country's entire history. I understand what all the problems are. I have actual solutions to them. And I understand how they follow, and unavoidably, in many instances, from discursive failures. I will solve all that and more. Because, after all, I also have the best understanding of the mechanism by which to actually attain solvency from a governing role as a president, namely using the Justice Department to get case law changed by the courts. This is a power that no president has taken anywhere close to full advantage of. T-jump? Yeah, that guy was dumb AF, right? Because he claimed to have some sort of presidential aspirations. But what I was just saying, all that stuff I was just saying, that's what a real, genuinely qualified presidential candidate sounds like. Oh, I don't know. T-Jump is the one who criticized my homelessness solution because it's never been tried before. Well, you're right. The federal government has never federalized homelessness services before. So let's keep doing it the way we're doing it now because it's working so well. Keep in mind, the reason the problem is what it is because of a specific Supreme Court ruling that dictates to municipalities how they have to behave regarding homeless people. Oh, that guy? That was, what was his name? What was that guy's name? Sean? I don't remember. But lots of people have criticized the idea of me running for president. Lots and lots of people have. And those criticisms come in lots of different ways. Sometimes they come as, you'll never win. There are too many entrenched power centers to prevent that from happening. Number two, you might gain a groundswell, but then the shadow government people will come in and shut you down. There's no way for a real truth speaker to become president. Number three, you can't become president like that. You have to start out as mayor and then be governor and then meh, meh, meh. You know what I never hear from anybody? You are not qualified. You know what I never hear from anybody? You don't know what you're talking about. You know what I never hear from anybody? That you don't have the best grasp of American politics of anyone I've ever met. I never hear anybody deny that even. That I'm the best possible candidate doesn't seem to be in dispute by anybody. What they always dispute is the practical realities of it. You kind of definitely need a lot of money. Well, sure, you need to raise funds if you're going to have a viable candidacy for president. You're going to have to advertise. But the thing is, my plan on how to campaign is to engage in a true old-fashioned whistle-stop campaign, to travel all around the country, setting up opportunities to speak with potential voters everywhere I can go, start with colleges or whatever, and each of those opportunities ask for donations to my campaign as well. Hopefully some gradual momentum builds up and I start getting national coverage, at which point then I'll have plenty of campaign donations. Because after all, anybody who actually listens to me talk about America, American politics, what we ought to do, what we're doing wrong, what the problems are, where the solutions are, has no possible opportunity to do anything but be convinced that this guy clearly knows what the fuck he's talking about. He's passionate, authentic, transparent, and a patriotic American. He loves this country. And he understands that America's being stupid, all forms of stupidity are un-American. But most essentially, stupidity at the civics level is wickedly un-American. So I plan to put a stop to idiocy. Well, I mean, I did that cost benefit analysis as well. I did that evaluatory metric too, which is to say municipalities are currently pouring shit tons of money into creating housing for homeless people so that they can legally remove them from their encampments off of the sidewalk, right? If we were to redirect even half of the monies that municipalities are currently pouring in vain towards pie in the sky homelessness solutions and centralize that money under the purview of the federal government, then it would fund itself. But even if the federal government has to pay for it directly, by cleaning up all the major cities and ridding them of that problem, we will see economic resurgence in all those major cities, and ultimately tax revenue will go up and it'll be a wash economically. Well, the thing is, there are two frames of looking at this here, Lamb. It's the problem of homelessness for homeless people, but the problem that is much more significant is the problem of homelessness for everyone else. If you've been to LA, San Francisco, Oakland, Portland, Seattle, San Diego, I mean, to any of those cities, you know that they are turning into squalid, refuse-filled homeless camps. So let's solve that problem. Personally, I think authoritarians fail because they operate by leveraging popularity for bad faith reasons. I mean, the vast majority of fails are done with good intentions. Almost all of them. You are underestimating how stupid people are. Stupid people with good intentions wreak unspeakable havoc upon us all. Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm going to take exception to that, Jeremiah Fix. If the need is sanity and intelligence, then it can become the want as well. In reality, people don't vote based on what they want at all. They vote based on values resonance. So if I'm urban, left-leaning, I believe in the group's capacity to help individuals. If I'm right-leaning, I believe in the primacy of the individual, and I've probably created a bunch of group boogeymen in my head. Of course, if I'm left-leaning, I also have group boogeymen in my head, but left-leaning people view themselves as more civilized and urbane. Right-leaning people view themselves as smarter or more in keeping with American values, right? The thing is, in both cases, individuals who become enamored of their group membership, left or right, end up exerting a tremendous amount of completely pointless, wasted energy, being mad at things that don't exist. Well, the thing is, both parties believe they're upholding American values, sure. But the fact that they're upholding American values is much more important to conservatives. Liberals, who are more urbane and cosmopolitan, view nationalism with a certain amount of eye rolling. But if asked to articulate a position on it, would say that's the American value to uphold. They don't self-identify so much as Americans and be like, wave the flag all the time, right? Well, I mean, the thing is, but while each of those parties in this ongoing dispute would assert, if asked, that their values are more concretely American. It's the conservatives who prioritize America in their value matrix. The liberals prioritize equality slash their understanding of justice, are more likely to critique the United States for foreign policy failures or whatever. So Jonathan Haidt has no idea about anything, so just forget him and his moral foundation theory. It's basically a big turd that he's pushing in each of our mouths. It both tastes bad, is not something you should eat, and doesn't explain morals at all. So yes, you can arbitrarily taxonomy moral responses into these kinds of responses. It tells us nothing that is informative at all. So just Jonathan Haidt, you need to just put a cork in it, motherfucker. So anyway, liberals tend to view conservatives as anti-science. Conservatives tend to view liberals as sissified America, or upsetting their traditions and their more traditional values, right? With change. Change always upsets people. Obviously, it upsets most the people who are being made to change. So, who's most upset about the cops no longer being able to shoot black people? The cops, obviously. They're the ones who have to change. So the reason I've been thinking about this in particular a lot lately is, okay, there is no system that holds up wealthy people and corporations. That does not exist. Wealthy people become wealthy either because they're good at getting rich or their parents died. Corporations, each corporation is executing its own economic agenda, attempting to make as much money as possible. The fact is, just as there is nobody else who should get any of the profit when a corporation does well, there is, in fact, nobody at all holding them up when they do poorly. Companies enter bankruptcy. Sears Roebuck, that great American, paragon of American retail markets, went out of business. Because why? They didn't adjust to the times fast enough. They didn't produce a in-store purchasing experience that was adequate to retain a customer base that made them profitable. How many businesses went out of business during COVID? Sioux Plantation went out of business. Shit tons of places did, right? Including big chains. So there is, in fact, none of this nonsense metaphor that occupies so much of wrong people's political attention. For those who are so worried about corporations, you either do not know what a corporation is, do not accurately understand how corporations interact with government, or you simply are choosing to demonize economic enterprise. I mean, there's no explanation for it at all, right? It's not that there are no bad corporations or that there are no corporations that do bad things. There are some corporations that do bad things. And I guess if you wanted to be vague, you could say, therefore, there are some bad corporations. But the fact is, all corporations are doing a fundamentally good thing. They are increasing the total amount of wealth in the world by doing productive economic activity. Now, if we're going to critique
anything about corporations and economic activity and so forth, the thing we should critique is the fact that governments introduce currency into the economy that keeps up with the new wealth created by all that good economic enterprise done by corporations and individuals. But they don't disseminate the currency into the economy equitably. That's where you should be complaining. And this is what an actually qualified presidential candidate sounds like. So, for example, there's a common misconception that if the federal government were to distribute new currency directly to its citizens in the form of cash payments, that it would have inflationary pressures. That is absolutely not true. The total amount of currency being infused in the economy would be the same in under the current scheme or under a scheme that's equitable. Under the current scheme, all that currency gets introduced to the banks, who then have to lend it to people. It does increase the total amount of currency in the economy to match the increased amount of wealth that's created by people doing productive work, but it doesn't distribute it fairly. So if you want to have an informed, meaningful position on some sort of U.S. economic question that links vaguely to corporations, that should be your position. That should be your advocacy. The corporation at fault here is the Federal Reserve and their protocols. And again, this is what a qualified presidential candidate sounds like. He hears what you say, and he informs you, here's the full picture, here's the right answer, here's the wrong answer, and here's why. And his arguments are not meaningfully refuted by anybody because he's right. I'm going to keep hammering this message because it's got to be pretty compelling to anybody listening, right? Wow, Eric really fucking knows what he's talking about. He truly understands the economy, foreign policy, domestic policy, civics, the job of the president, the judicial branch, and the legislature. He's got a set of knowledge that's both deep and broad related to the subject of governance. He's got a legal mind like the very best of possible lawyers, but he's a moral absolutist. So you know he'll direct those attentions towards that which is righteous. It's the perfect storm of everything for a man to be the best president America's ever had. Note, I didn't say it's the perfect storm to get me elected. The perfect storm doesn't produce the most electable candidate. It produces the best conceivable candidate. It's up to the American people to be smart enough to elect him. But you know, you don't have to be a genius to hear me talk about politics and believe me when I say I'm the best conceivable candidate. To the extent that anybody disagrees with that, they always predicate it not on my actual competency with these issues, but rather on the fact that I don't have any experience being a president. Well, neither does any other president before their first term. Oh yeah, well, you don't have any experience being a governor. Because I don't want to be the governor of California. Yes, California needs me too. But I'm a lot more patriotic of an American than I am of a Californian. I'm a lot more willing to do my duty as an American. And my duty is to become president and save the world. And now that I'm feeling my oats again, it started the kind of last month, and now this month I'm really feeling my oats. It's gonna happen. It's like I was being slowly and torturously castrated at my dad's house, so much so that I didn't have much impetus for actually making things happen. But this bottle of Adderall is playing out so differently than the last year's worth of bottles of Adderall, except for maybe last month a little bit. I'm putting the handle on all kinds of shit. I'm getting so much stuff done. And it's a self-reinforcing kind of thing, right? I'm rediscovering the power of my own agency. I'm starting to believe in it again. I'm starting to enjoy being an agent who does things and accomplishes impacts. I'm increasingly emotionally and spiritually at peace, so I'll be less subject to raging out on idiots going forward, gradually increasingly less subject to that particular shortcoming of mine. That doesn't play well, and it's not a good strategy to dealing with idiots. Don't get all furious at them and start yelling at them. I know better than that. If it were a debate round, like a formal debate round, I wouldn't be acting like that. But here on YouTube, I have gotten myself in a habit of just being infuriated by shitty, stupid idiots. Well, the best way to crush them is very calmly. And I know this, and I can do this. I am, after all, a debate coach and somebody who was a debater way back in the day and who's debated plenty of debate rounds in my capacity as a coach. I know how to manage my emotions in an argumentation. It's just what happens on YouTube when I start arguing with somebody is it drives me so crazy is that there's a lack of agreement about where the core of the arguments are and what responses to those arguments mean or tell us about the flow of the discussion, When people don't believe that they make claims in order to defend them from refutations by being responsive to those refutations, then they're just wasting everybody's time in this horrible farce of discourse theater that other idiots watch and go, wow, that's so smart. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not so smart. It's incredibly dumb. Although not as dumb as the commercial I saw here during Oakland A's game the other day. There's some talk show in the Bay Area, and the host had on Bernie Sanders, and there's a big, like, on the screen behind it said, why it's okay to be mad at capitalism. Talk about spoiled entitlement, bite the hand that feeds you, etc. And just an apparent immunity to shame. This guy's advertising his talk show on an Oakland A's broadcast, and the theme of his discussion is how terrible capitalism is. Could anybody be any more loathsome? And the fact is, that guy and Bernie Sanders both are blind to their appalling hypocrisy because they're TI polar, probably, Newsom is such a horrible governor. I mean, just like pride of the Bay Area. He was San Francisco's mayor before he was the governor. Ugh. What? He's both a tard and a turd. He's a turd. You know who's actually a pretty good governor? Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a pretty good governor. And surprisingly also, Jerry Brown, in his last incarnation as governor, was a surprisingly good governor. You know, he really had the TE of bureaucracy down, but in his old age, he had let go of his ideological slant, and he was a very effective governor. I don't think his first term, way back in the 70s, was very good, but when he was an old man, he turned into quite a good governor. But Newsom is a disgrace. I can't confirm that Winston's mom, but it sounds right. He was like America's first and maybe only full blast hippie governor when he was elected in the 70s. But, you know, his father was governor too. Jerry Brown's father was governor before him. I mean, not immediately before him, but he followed in his dad's footsteps. Newsom is a perfect example of fourth slot TI getting on the science bandwagon without even knowing what science means. You know, he sent out this governor's order that to limit the number of people who could go to Thanksgiving dinner at your house. And the whole state was just like, sheriff's departments statewide were saying, we're not enforcing this. He doesn't have the power to dictate this, etc. So he really lost a lot of political capital with that gaffe, trying to centrally govern people's Thanksgiving dinners. I mean, how fucking stupid can you possibly be? I don't remember his first term. I was just a little kid, you know. But I'm guessing from just sort of generalities I've read about it that he was probably a proponent of all sorts of proactive social shit that backfires always, you know. Now, Americans are smarter than this, okay? Americans are smarter than this. It's just that they aren't smart enough to choose the best pile of bullshit from infinite piles of bullshit. But it's because they've never encountered a pile of truth before from an actually viable candidate for president. They've never encountered anybody as competent as me. They've never encountered anybody speaking the truth about everything, from how people talk about politics
to the specifics of any particular policy. They've never encountered this before. Somebody who's genuinely a passionate patriot who says it is time for we citizens to reclaim our citizen democracy from morons. Yes, Americans are smart enough to understand that. And it's a pretty fucking compelling message. Because it's not like I'm faking it, right? I'm not actually trying to become a career politician and I'm just trying to pretend to be a regular American guy. I'm not just a lawyer who's trying to pretend to be knowledgeable about politics. I'm not a regular Joe who's pretending to be qualified enough to be president. I'm not pretending on anything. I'm the real deal on all metrics. I'm a real American patriot, and I really do have the very best ideas about what we ought to do, the very best understanding of where the engine of every contemporary American problem of significance lies, a clear understanding of what ought to be prioritized and how much, and an unparalleled ability to communicate all this to everybody. So even if you don't believe in me, in terms of my viability as a candidate, believe in your fellow Americans. To hear what you're hearing now and understand the powerful truth of it as you are doing right now. Yeah, he thought his audience was San Francisco. You know, I still have to put on a mask when I go into the mushroom store in Oakland. It's the only place that I still have to put on a mask. Oakland. Which is as trashy and squalid a homeless camp as you have ever seen. Now keep in mind, the left-leaning philocrats have been running things in the Bay Area for decades. So at whose feet do we lay the blame for the clusterfuck of a catastrophe they've made their greater metropolitan area? We have got to stop electing philocrats. I'm sad because those people are poorer than those people. Let's base public policy on that. The philocrats have got to get the fuck out of the discursive landscape. They have no business trying to dictate policy when they can't even distinguish between their own feelings and a wise course of action. It's like those people are so empowered intentionally to be the masters of their own lives. And instead, they try to be the master of other people's lives. Meanwhile, I am not empowered to be the master of my own life very much. Because I lack those subjectivities and conscious attentional strengths. So that's why everybody can trust me. Because I don't know how to care about things that are important to me. You know? I don't know how to prioritize my interests over what's universalist in its correctness, you know? That's why I'm trustworthy in a position of such responsibility. People who are habituated to using their own subjective deliberations and knowings to make decisions, well, such people are more likely to be successful than me
but are definitely not qualified to represent the public or do the public's business. We should all start with the notion that the public's business, when done correctly, is done transparently and fairly. We should all begin with an understanding that we default to negate. We default to neg. Until and unless a given advocacy to take action has met all the burdens to affirm and withstood all efforts to negate, then we should never take that action. And when we rush into taking action without vetting it through the appropriate deliberative processes, then that's when we end up with bullshit like our COVID policy. Here's the deal. Other people get frustrated talking about politics with me if they think they're pundits about politics, because it doesn't take long talking to me before they realize, comparatively, they don't know a goddamn thing. That they're many books worth of knowledge away from even beginning to have the proper approach to understanding the things they claim to have opinions about. So, obviously, in no fair universe in which the candidates are engaged with each other discursively and transparently in front of the American people could I even conceivably lose an election. Unfortunately, I will concede that the structure of campaigning doesn't engage the candidates directly with each other enough in substantive ways, and even the attempts to do so fail to do so completely because they don't require any of the candidates to actually debate anything. They don't require any of the candidates to be responsive to points made or keep track of the arguments made even. There should be a flow on the fucking screen during a presidential debate, and everything that's not responded to by candidate A, by candidate B, should be indicated as dropped, so that the person can be shamed by their failure to correctly engage discursively about something so important. There is no other even prospective candidate in America who can, off the cuff, express such important truth about such important things as I have been demonstrating for the last 15 minutes. So don't underestimate the American people. You're hearing it, and whether you say it out loud or not, you're impressed and you agree with my core message, which is I'm the man to do that job. If it convinces you, why do you deny your fellow Americans the opportunity to be convinced by it? Why do you presume they're dumber than you? And remember, the main reason there's so much stupidity in American political discourse is because nobody's presenting passionately a viable alternative for people to use as a model. I am, and will continue to do so for the rest of my life. Hopefully, that plus actually starting a campaign for 2028, plus actually having some resources to get it started a bit, plus, genuine certainty that yes, I'm going to do it and doing it. I believe in America, so that should be enough. I'm that much better than the alternatives. And the other thing is, people can dig up dirt on me and try to put that in front of people as damning me in some fashion, but it's all the same dirt. Eric did drugs. It's all the same dirt. Eric does drugs. Eric does these drugs. Eric did those drugs. Eric, whatever. All the dirt on me is exactly the same. Eric does drugs. Well, you know what? I'm pretty confident that the vast majority of the American people are able to recognize that even if I did drugs, it clearly hasn't affected my competency at all. And you know, once I start campaigning, I won't do any non-prescription drugs for the duration of my presidency. I have a duty to uphold federal law. So, if I'm president, so that means I have to quit smoking weed, and that's okay. Well, I guess I'll have to quit doing mushrooms too for 4 years. That's one. That's one of the reasons why I'm only ever going to serve one term. Because I don't want to quit smoking weed and quit doing mushrooms, but I will do that as president. And I think the American people are like, will be like, well, shit. Clearly, his previous drug use hasn't affected his competency at all. And I believe him when he says he will respect federal law. That's his whole shtick, right? Is like understanding the significant duties of representing all of the American people, the weight of that responsibility, behaving accordingly, returning dignity to the office, you know? So, yeah, I'm feeling my oats today. I'm feeling my oats this month. I'm feeling my oats even starting last month. They're coming back to me. I'm regrowing oats. The field has been fallow for some time, but the oats have sprouted. They're growing, and I'm out in the field fondling the oats. Therefore, you could say I am feeling my oats. The thing is this, by and large, people's concern about drug users falls into the categories of instability and dumbness. People mistakenly believe that doing drugs makes you dumb. Well, nobody's going to be able to paint me with that brush. And regarding the second one, instability, it's going to be very difficult to paint me with that brush too, because I am very deliberative, and I'm also expressly, part of my message is that we need to be deliberatively robust. We can't just rush into trying to take actions because we think it's a good idea. We need to respect the process, the deliberative processes of producing an advocacy, having the advocacy meaningfully be held to upholding its burdens to affirm, and meaningfully be subjected to scrutiny by a negation. In other words, what they're supposed to do in Congress. The other thing about my drug use is I'm pushing 10 years sober. I quit drinking, as did George W. Bush. The Central Intelligence Agency? Do I know about them? What is this thing you're talking about? CIA? Yes, I know that we have a Central Intelligence Agency, and we also have a National Security Agency. And I also know that many Americans believe
such agencies comprise a shadow government that really controls things and decides who is allowed to be elected president and so forth. Of course, if you look at if you look at the history of different presidents over the last couple of decades, it it counterfeits that notion immediately. We've had Richard Nixon be president, then Gerald Ford. We've had Jimmy Carter be president, then Ronald Reagan, then George Bush, then no, yeah, then Bill Clinton, then George Bush, then we had what was after the first George Bush? Was that when Clinton was? I don't know. We had Clinton in there, right? Then we had Obama and Trump. I mean, talk about such a wildly different set of people and various political positions and approaches to the office. If you're trying to tell me the CIA put Trump in office because they thought they could control him, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Nobody can control that idiot. Nobody can control that idiot. Why would the CIA purposefully elect both Obama and Trump? Well, the Overton window, we call it that if you want. Everything I'm advocating fits squarely within it, and yet is both novel and powerful. So I'm not advocating anything unacceptable at all. I'm not advocating anything unacceptable to any American, no matter how heavily slanted their politics in one direction or another. Okay, well, why do you think the American CIA would be siding with some international globalist agenda via the New World Order? Do the people who join the CIA seem like globalists to you? I mean, remember, you're talking about regular American citizens joining the CIA, which is definitely a hegemon's sword, right? So you're talking about pro-hegemony people here, not globalists. And if you think about things like that, then you don't need to be drawn astray by these notions. They don't make any sense. You need to remember that these organizations like CIA, NSA, blah, 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 the people who comprise their individual members are regular Americans like you and me. Generally, more conservative Americans, not globalists. Does that mean that there are no shady backroom shit going down ever? No, I'm sure some does. I mean, 9/11 is a glaring example of some faction within almost certainly the U.S. government or clandestine agencies that engineered a false flag attack. I'm quite convinced of it. But you'll note that that doesn't make me believe there's a shadow government, because I also recognize how fragile power is, especially in a civil society that retains at least the habits of democracy.
transparent courts. I mean, the thing is, well, the biggest threat to America legally was, of course, the Patriot Act. The idea of secret courts is anathema to a civil society. So, yeah, post 9/11, a lot of effort was made to attack the foundations of American democracy by eliminating transparency, whistleblowers, open court, open sessions of Congress. You know, when you get all these like committees that get briefed in secret about shit, that's not good for democracy. Black Israelites? Are there a lot of black Israelites? And hey, Jeremiah Fix, they prefer to be called African American Israelites. They prefer to be called Israeli African American Israelites. Great replacement. Well, we are undergoing a great replacement. And the reason is because white people all over the country are having sex with brown people. And our pure race is going away. Oh no. Ridiculous. I'm much more concerned about, as far as immigration goes, the only thing I'm concerned about is Chinese immigration, as I'm worried that China is interested in sending a lot of spies and is interested in doing a lot of kinds of sabotagey ways of undermining the United States. So I'm worried about immigration from China. Now, no, that's not something you ever hear anybody say about immigration. That's an actual immigration concern. And I say this despite the fact that Rachel and I's best grown-up friends, you know, are both immigrated from China, and their kids are born Americans and are great, wonderful Americans, you know, and their parents are definitely not spies for China. But nevertheless, I'm mostly concerned about vetting all potential Chinese immigrants. I was very bothered by that American snowboarder who, despite being an American citizen, her mom was a Chinese national, and she competed in the Olympics for China. Like, fuck you, bitch. Don't you love your country? Yes, I did invite Jeffrey, Chloe, Chawa, and Hui to the wedding, and they are coming. And in fact, Chawa and Hui, they're going to play their violin and viola, respectively. And the song they're going to play is first this one. They're going to play that one. And then they're going to, when it's the time, at a certain point, I'll cue them. Then they're going to segue into meow, 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 meow.
meow, 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 meow. And then Rachel, her father, will walk her over from one place to another place. And I guess I'll already be standing there. I'll be like, who's this lady? Why is her dress so cumbersome? That's gonna get dirty. Yes, and also what's extra delightful, Winston's mom, is that Les, the conductor of the Yosemite Mariposa Symphony Orchestra, is also going to be attending our wedding. And how fancy is that? I'll be able to introduce my friends who play for the LA Philharmonic to my friend who conducts the Yosemite Mariposa Symphony Orchestra. And all three of them are going to be like, wow, Eric's so fancy. Everybody's going to be like, Eric's so fancy. This is third slot FE on display right here. That made me so happy when I realized that both Chawa and Hui and Les and his wife are going to be there. Also, our realtor and his wife are going to be there. I don't think there's going to be a shit ton of people there. We got Cameron and Kara. We got Delilah. She'll probably bring somebody. We got Rachel's mom, Rachel's dad, and Rachel's dad's girlfriend. We got David and his wife. We got Les and his wife. We got Hui, Chawa, Jeffrey, Chloe. I don't know about Jeffrey and Chloe, but Hui and Chawa. I think that's all the ones I know for sure are coming. That's not very many people. But, oh, Dave Porter will come too, if he can possibly do it. If he can possibly make it over here. Dave Porter and Natalie will come. Hopefully Roger will come. Roger Park. Now, I don't know. I was fully expecting that Winston's mom was going to be here. But last I checked, she hasn't RSVP'd. Yeah, my realtor from up here, David, the guy who was our realtor in buying this house, and who has, as a consequence, my eternal gratitude, because without him, we definitely would not have gotten this house. He put together this crazy contingency deal that allowed us to get this house. We're hoping Lou can make it, but, you know, I know she's got a new job and she may not be able to get time off or whatever. I've invited Horse Mumbler. I hope he can make it, but I don't know. I invited Mackenzie. She says she's not going to be able to make it. If anybody else here would like to be invited, like Morge, if you'd like to be invited, just shoot me an email and I'll invite you. If I don't know you as well as I know Morge, then, and you want to come, that's fine, but I need to vet you via video conference first. So I'll continue saying that each live stream. We have RSVP by the end of this month. So up until then, I'll continue saying, hey, if anybody wants to be invited. Of course, we don't expect a huge turnout because it's a destination wedding for everybody, number one. And we sent out at the beginning of May invitations for a destination wedding on July 8th. Now, if you're an ESTJ or something, you have not only this July 8th scheduled, you probably have next July 8th scheduled already. So, you know, that's one of the problems with two intuitards being responsible for putting together a wedding. Rachel's mom's actually been quite helpful with sort of TE hints and shit, TE hacks or whatever. Like she sent Rachel a to-do list for putting on a backyard wedding. Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's a good idea, Winston's mom. I think that's a very good idea. I think I will do that after this stream. I will mention it as well. We're going to cap this at 50 people. One might think a month is a long time, but it's only 3 weeks. That's funny, Jeremiah Fakes. I like that. It's good stuff. I invited Taylor and Katie. I don't know. I haven't looked at the things to see who's RSVP'd. So, but occasionally I'll catch, like an email notification that Mia has RSVP'd, like one of Rachel's relatives that they're not going or whatever. But Rachel looks at the list, and that's how I know Winston's mom hasn't RSVP'd, is because Rachel was like, I guess you would say she was hoping, she was looking forward to seeing Winston's mom and was concerned that she wasn't going to come. He's welcome to come. I'll invite his ass. I just need his email. If you want to send me his email, Winston's mom, I could probably look it up in my own email. I know I've exchanged emails with him before. The crazy thing is, he's the one who scolded me so much for letting, quote unquote, Rachel do DMT, which caused her to have serotonin syndrome, but which we both believed caused her neuropathy. And it turned out it had nothing to do with it. Oh, that's the worst mistake of my life was my thinking about that. I mean, it was the right intuitive leap to make, that there's no possible way these discrete symptoms, both emerging from a single night of drug use, comprise different interactions entirely independently of each other, are two different bad drug interactions completely independent of each other. That's what it was. That's why I made the correct intuitive leap, but I failed to make the correct framework, which is, regarding matters of your health, err on the side of caution. Anyway, worst thing I've ever done. Biggest mistake I've ever made. Worst mistake than going out with Kimberly, because that mistake harmed Rachel. This mistake harmed Rachel. And it's like, I don't doubt that she had faith that my interpretation of the research I read was correct. And my interpretation of the research I read was correct. But I just didn't research in the right place. Well, that's my lifetime 5 of Cups. Everybody should have a single number 1 5 of Cups event in their life. And that's mine. Yes, I still have 3 cups, but I can't help but continually lament the fact that I knocked 2 cups over. Well, no. What I have from Winston's mom is an indication that she will RSVP at some point, but that just means she'll indicate to us whether she's coming or not. It does not mean she's necessarily going to RSVP yes. All right, I'll invite Peter Dentici. He is close. It's it'll be less of a destination wedding for him than for anybody else, except for Les and David, the realtor. Les, and our neighbors next door. I have to ask. I have to just tell them personally. I don't have their email address, so I'll just have to say. Maybe I'll write down on a piece of paper. Wedding invitation to Jeremy and Kay. Where? Next door to your house, July 8th. Please come to our wedding. Thanks, Eric and Rachel. Maybe I'll have to explain why they don't get a real invitation. I'll say, yeah, but it's not correct to mush those two things together as though they were one event. You can't, you don't get to apply benefits from one distinct plan being executed to cover for deficits when you fuck up somewhere else. That's a very TE way of looking at things. You take the full win on number 1 and you take the full loss on number 2. You can't just pretend it was all one big game, you know. Oh, I want to count the runs from yesterday's baseball game that we didn't need in today's baseball game. That's cheating. We only have email invitations. We don't have any physical invitations. Are the email invitations fancy? Yes. I mean, as fancy as email invitations can be. We paid a service to send them out. Well, they might, if they're like me, they might want a piece of paper to magnet up onto the fridge. That's how I keep track of things like that. For example, I think we are going to say, yes, we want to be a part of the yard sale, the Mariposa Pines Community Yard Sale, which is basically one day a year, Mariposa Pines has a yard sale day. It's not easy to get all the way back into Mariposa Pines. Where it's not difficult, but it's not on the way to anything, right? If you're on the highway and you want to go to this yard sale, you have to drive 20 minutes back curvy roads to get to where we are. So the thing is, as a consequence, instead of having no individual person could ever really pull off a yard sale around here except with our neighbors looking at their stuff. So they have one day where all the people around here who are going to have a yard sale all have it on the same day. So then they put up advertising and stuff like that to drum up a lot of traffic. And so that's what I want to participate in. Because we got 3 presents from Rachel's sister, one of which I guess we'll keep it because I could conceivably use it. The other 2 I just immediately wanted to throw away, but I said, no, you know what, we should keep these and sell them at the yard sale. Her sister bought us weird things. Like, she bought a single serving home ice cream maker. It's like, if Rachel and I want to eat ice cream, we're going to buy good ice cream from the store made by people who are good at making ice cream.
We are not going to make our own homemade ice cream and go, that was a lot of work to know that this worst ice cream was homemade. No, I don't want to do that. The other thing I think she got us was a single egg grilling thing. Like maybe they use at McDonald's to make their eggs. The 42 Laws of Matt. Egyptians believed your good deeds were weighed on a scale versus your bad deeds by their heart. This is determined by the scales tipped in favor of entering heaven. That's a horrible belief system because it encourages well-intentioned people to do what they think's best without having it vetted for correctness. If after all they really in their heart believed it was the best thing to do, then the fact that it caused the Holocaust doesn't matter. See what I'm saying? That's horrible. Matt should never have been put in charge of making 42 laws. He should have just been put in charge of lying in front of the door and letting people wipe their feet on him. That's what mats are for. I must say, I appreciate your ingenuity. I'm assuming that's directed towards Winston's mom, but I'm going to interpret it as though it's about me. You should appreciate my ingenuity, Jeremiah Fix. So, congratulations. Your response to my ingenuity is correct. Appreciation. You're going to create a board game based on the laws of Matt? That sounds fun. 42 laws of Matt. 42 laws of Matt on the wall. 42 laws of Matt. Take one down. Cause injustice with it in town. 41 laws of Matt on the wall. 41 laws of Matt on the wall. 41 laws of Matt. Take one down. It's TE again. Frown. 40 bottles of Matt on the wall. That's what I would say about the lot of Matt. Why are you spelling it with two A's right next to each other? Should we pronounce it Matt? No, you're just being like a hipster. That's why you spell it that way. Your real name is Matthew. God, I hate ancient Egyptian hipsters. Like Cleopatra. Her name was Cleopatrice. She insisted everybody call her Cleopatra. Ancient Egyptian hipsters are the absolute worst. You know, Egyptians were perfectly capable of drawing lifelike figures, but ancient Egyptian hipsters made this into a trend. That's why they're all doing it in the hieroglyphics. That's why I like to call them logoglyphics, because they're so shitty. That's not how you draw a person, ancient Egyptians. They're more round and pudgy looking and stuff. Get it right. Also, you don't need to make dead people into mummies. What are you saving that for? Do you plan to use it later? Is mummification the Ziploc bag of ancient Egypt? I think they were planning on eating it later, disgustingly. The only reason I can think of why they want to keep it around. Hey, Bob, there's a corpse over here. What should we do with it? Well, I'd like to keep it around for as long as possible. Why? I might need it later. For what? Well, I might eat it. You're gonna eat it? This is one thing I might do. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it later. I'm just saying, just don't throw it away. And so you want me to wrap it up in bandages? Not bandages, the papyrus equivalent. All right. There, how's that? Perfect. That should keep it nice and fresh. I'm pretty sure it won't. Trust me. These papyrus bandages have disinfecting properties. Even so, look, just to prove I'm on the level, I'm not going to eat it unless I get really hungry. I'm going to even leave a bunch of gold things in here so I'm serious about my commitment to keeping this body fresh. Okay, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I'm going back home, and I think we should stay away from each other for a while. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm going to be busy keeping an eye on this corpse anyway. Well, what do you think it's going to do? Well, hopefully stay fresh. A conversation between two ancient Egyptians. That was the day they first started making mummies. And again, you can blame the hipsters. That first guy who did it, he just had this weird fixation with eating dead bodies that had been dead for like years. But the hipsters thought it would be funny if they got mummified when they died. And before you knew it, it caught on. And then the pharaohs were like, now I want to get mummified. But you know what? I'm going to consult with my hipster advisor. And he said, it would be super rad if your mummy were in the middle of a giant pyramid. Why a pyramid? Said the pharaoh. Because that's the coolest shape this year, dude. Squares are so reign of Ptolemy. Are they? Yeah. I mean, it's like, you wouldn't want to make a sphinx now, would you? That's so yesterday. No, I wouldn't want to make a sphinx. Pyramids now. That's where it's at, okay? And the bigger you can make it, that's the more badass hip your death is. Well, I want my death to be the hippest death in history. Okay. I'm going to recommend to you an architect who's got a plan I think you're going to like a lot. Its working title is The Good Pyramid of Giza. Anyway, eventually they changed the name to The Great Pyramid of Giza. Once it was done, they're like, you know what? We won't be overselling this at all. This is a great pyramid. And then the pharaoh's like, okay, well, cool, I'm going to die now, and you guys mummify me and put me in there, okay? And that's how it happened. You are naked. No naked ones can command respect. Okay. Right there, we know that Matt did not know what he was talking about. If the right person gets naked in the right context, it definitely demands respect. If I ever feel like I want to respect Rachel a lot, I just take off her clothes.
Because, you gotta respect that. Especially when you're 52. And you're just like, score. Now, I'll admit, the arrival of Eric in the nude is not likely to command a lot of respect. What's that slouchy, naked old man doing here? People will say. I'm practicing for naked off-right. I'll be like, oh, I think you're supposed to do that in the wilderness, not at McDonald's. Well, I figure I might encounter a McDonald's in the wilderness. You make a compelling argument. And that's how I was able to eat at McDonald's even though I was completely naked. It said no shirt, no shoes, no service, but I pointed out that it didn't say that that applied as well to people who were practicing for Naked and Afraid. Since my visit, they've added it to the sign. It needs to specifically indicate that as an addendum to the general rule, because everybody would naturally assume that it's exempted. Naked and Afraid, downtown Chicago. Well, mostly I guess I'm afraid of the predators, whether they're packing handguns, assault rifles, or just beating sticks, Obviously, I'm worried about the cops. When the producers of the show saw I was African American, I think it would have been responsible of them to pick a different city, but, beggars can't be choosers. Chicago cops are the absolute worst. They're worse than the LAPD. The absolute worst used to be the LA County Sheriff's Department until the FBI busted them. I think Lee Baca ended up going to jail. My God, can you believe the sheriff's pulling that shit? The Great Pyramid of Giza, the kind of thing rich people in ancient Egypt did with their money. That's a good way to put it. But really, I prefer to think of it as a community-wide shared valuing of pyramids. Like, I like to think that regular Egyptians built small pyramids in their front yard. And, basically, the richer you were, the bigger the pyramid you built. But it's just that in the ensuing years, all the smaller pyramids, which were much more shoddily made because they couldn't cut huge blocks of stone and have thousands of people pull them along and stuff. So they just made them out of adobe. Needless to say, those pyramids didn't withstand this test of time. And apparently on Christmas, everybody in Cairo would put candles on their pyramids, and people would take rickshaws around town on a tour of the holiday lights. Little known facts about ancient Egypt. So anyhow, Rachel's taking a shower, which I'm going to interpret as she remembers that I want to have sex this morning. I wanted to have sex last night, but she was a little she hesitated for a second. So you want to put it off till tomorrow morning? She's like, yeah. I'm glad we did. I'm glad we put it off till tomorrow morning, which is now. Because if we hadn't, I wouldn't be nearly as young, dumb, and full of cum as I currently am. I wouldn't be thinking about how delightful it will be when Rachel emerges from the shower, walks downstairs, only to discover that the placid morning she was anticipating is about to be disrupted by man pole. First, she'll say, eek. Then she'll say, what is that word that they use in that anime? Squee? Squee. Squee. Squee's a good word. I like it a lot. It basically means, aw, squee. I think that's the best definition for squee. Aw. I wonder if you Google it, if they have a definition for squee. Let's find out. Celebrity woo stars and celebrities. Do they know things? What do they know? Let's find out. Squee. Used to express great delight or excitement. Squeal. A cry of delight or excitement. Oh, its derivation is from squeal. It's slang for squeal. Interesting. Squee. I saw it in an anime the other day and I was smitten with the term. When I saw them using the term, it made me go, squee! That's what Rachel says when she sees my man pole. First she says eek, and then she says squee. Okay, so I hope you've all learned a lot about Egypt today. If I did fail to introduce myself at the outset, I am Egyptologist Eric, expert on hieroglyphics, pyramids, papyrus, and sand. Also the Nile River. I'm a real expert on the Nile. There was a time when, for almost 20 straight years, I perfectly predicted the Nile flooding. And then they went and put up the Anmar Dam. I was like, you're ruining my streak. Well, look, not everybody wants to be sane or intelligent. That is a threat to their comfort zone in many ways. But I think, well, the thing is, Hero Lamb, that's fine. My plan accounts for the fact that they might reject the help. There's no requirement for anybody to go to a centralized location where home services are provided. There's merely a requirement that they not be provided anywhere else. And municipalities are inherently incentivized to send them there because the Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot dislodge vagrants from camping on the sidewalk unless you have somewhere to send them. So, in other words, it empowers municipalities to stop people from camping in public spaces. Public spaces are public spaces. You cannot simply homestead it and make it your own space. Except, according to the Supreme Court, you can unless a municipality provides you a free house. So, in other words, unless the municipality has some sort of housing solution to send them to. If we have only one such locality with those kind of solutions, then nobody's forced to go anywhere, but vagrancy laws can be enforced such that homeless people, if they insist on camping in the city on public land, will be given a choice. You can go to jail or pay a fine or whatever, or you can accept this free ticket to homeless town. No, there's not going to be any fences around it. Nobody's going to be required to stay there. The point is, it will allow municipalities to prevent homeless people from homesteading on the public space and making our cities unlivable. They prefer to be thought of actual gods, people, and hate. What? That's crazy. What did you and Rachel decide about wearing a hat for the wedding? I will be wearing a hat for the wedding. Rachel will not be wearing a hat. That was just a joke about Rachel wearing a hat. Right. Those who support Putin because they dislike our current president. That's how crazy it is when you use that like team heuristic to decide your policy positions. I'm just reading things right now to see what I need to respond to that I haven't responded to. The best channel I found for Egyptian symbology is Atum. Atum, the god, the oldest creation story ever told. One day, Atum was out walking in empty space. Gosh, I wish there was some ground to walk on. And so he created the earth. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo and the machinery of the night. Oh, that is so overwrought and too many prepositional phrases. God, Allen Ginsberg, you're such an ENFP. Stochastic analysis. Thanks, show media. Putin being a dictator doesn't detract from other leaders' sliminess. That's true. Putin being a scumbag does not preclude other people from also being scumbags. And with that simple and obvious observation, I will bid you all adieu, but also a fond see you soon, because I bet you I'm going to live stream again today. I'm feeling my oats, and when I make oatmeal out of those oats, that oatmeal often arrives in the flavor of live stream.